welcome. You're watching the Newshour Agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Over the last 48 hours, each one of you would have been witness to how people are desperately trying to seek out oxygen. Even as patients are making appeals to get this lifesaver, oxygen seems to be stuck in politics. Interstate movement of oxygen is being hampered largely because of politics, and things came to such a pass that today finally the centre had to intervene. A high-level meeting was chaired by the Prime Minister where the supply of oxygen was addressed across the country. A number of measures were decided upon. The Supreme Court also today asked the centre to give a national action plan, and the High Court was approached by a number of hospitals across Delhi basically saying the same thing. We have very limited stocks. We are going to run out of stocks. We have patients whose lives are hanging in balance, which is why among the steps that have been taken, one, the Prime Minister has said find ways to ramp up the production of medical oxygen. Second, oversee the supply and transport of this oxygen across the country. And third, find innovative ways of producing more oxygen. In addition to this, the Union Home Ministry has also issued a circular under the Disaster Management Act where they have said that the DMs and the senior police officers are personally going to be liable for the smooth movement of oxygen across states. No state has it within its rights to restrict the movement of oxygen or to attach this particular commodity to any one district. The point though is that despite all of this, the politics and the squabbling over something as basic as this still continues.
ये बहुत बड़ी आपदा है। इस आपदा में अगर हम सारे लोग हरियाणा, पंजाब, तमिलनाडु, गुजरात, पश्चिम बंगाल इसमें बट गए तो भारत नहीं बचेगा। इस वक्त हमें एक दूसरे की मदद करनी है। हमें भारतीय बनना है, हमें इंसान बनना है।
केंद्र सरकार द्वारा कल बढ़ाए गए कोटे को छोड़ भी दें तो कल तक 378 मीट्रिक टन दिल्ली सरकार का कोटा था। इस 378 मीट्रिक टन में से उत्तर प्रदेश और हरियाणा के अधिकारियों के और वहां की पुलिस की दादागिरी की वजह से केवल 177 मीट्रिक टन ही कल उठ पाया। 177 मीट्रिक टन उठ पाया, जो कि 378 मीट्रिक टन उठना चाहिए था, क्योंकि जहां से उठना था, जहां से ऑक्सीजन उठनी थी, वहां पे पुलिस और वहां के अधिकारी आके बैठ गए, वहां के सीनियर अधिकारी आके बैठकर उन्होंने वहां दिल्ली के लिए ट्रक को एंटर ही नहीं करने दिया। आज भी यही स्थिति बनी हुई है। हरियाणा और उत्तर प्रदेश दोनों में आज जो दिल्ली में चारों तरफ से ऑक्सीजन की तराही तराही मच रही है, उसका सबसे बड़ा कारण यह है कि हरियाणा और उत्तर प्रदेश दोनों में ऑक्सीजन को लेकर जंगल राज मचा रखा है।
So we have two options in front of us. Either we can spend the rest of this time fighting with each other, fighting one state versus the other, one party versus the other, keep pointing fingers at each other, or look for solutions. We are literally now at a point where we are desperately seeking a national action plan. Is there going to be a light at the end of this tunnel, or will we stay stuck in this political mud pit?
You're watching the News Hour at 10. Debate number 1 on Time Now. Super Prime Time.
But there are serious allegations, especially against the state of Haryana, about withholding oxygen supplies that have been delegated to various states, which is why at 10:30 p.m. today we will be joined by the minister from the Haryana government, Anil Vij, who in fact created quite a furor when he said that we will first ensure our needs, Haryana's needs, are met with and then give oxygen to others. He will be live with us. But right now, we want to go across to our expert panel and also member of the Rajya Sabha of the BJP, Syed Zafar Islam, to try and get answers to these very, very important questions that people of India are asking. Syed Zafar Islam live with us along with Dr. Harish Hirani, Director at CSIR, Subhashish Guha Roy, Managing Director, Universal Air Products, Dr. Ashok Seth, Padma Bhushan and Chairman of Fortis Escorts Heart Institute, and Dr. D.S. Rana, Chairman of Sir Gangaram Hospital, is also live with us. But before I start, Syed Zafar Islam, I want you to listen to the CEO of Shanti Mukund Hospital. I think the enormity of the problem and the desperation of the entire country really hit home when we heard this doctor make this desperate appeal for oxygen in the afternoon today. Listen to him.
We are hardly left with any oxygen. Now we have cancelled, we have requested our doctors to discharge the patient, whichever can be discharged. Whatever cylinders are there, we are trying to put them on the ICU beds, all those things, because ultimately they are forced carrying and there could be accidents also. 110 patients on oxygen.
How many people are on ventilators and ICU?
There are about 12 patients which are on ventilator and BiPAP. There are 85 patients which are more than 5 liters per minute oxygen supplies per. There are other people, they are also there. There are cancer patients, there are cardiac patients. And ultimately, it will be very deplorable condition, very unfortunate condition. We probably, you see, we as a doctor, we as a hospital, we are supposed to give life. If we cannot give them oxygen even, what is the situation? When patient comes to, patient will die. Patient will die.
So, sir, any help you have got from Delhi?
We know they are trying to help, but there is no oxygen, sir. There is no oxygen. We know this. We know, everybody knows it. Even government is trying to help us. But ultimately, oxygen is to be generated and supplied.
Syed Zafar Islam, how did things come to such a stage? Syed Zafar Islam, can you hear me? You heard the doctor there. How did things get so bad? Can you hear me, sir? All right, maybe we should do our tech checks and get our act together. If you could please take that question, Dr. Harish Hirani.
We are from CSIR and we work on innovation side. So we have been developing innovative solutions. And of course, the kind of the production was not appropriate. Maybe suddenly there was a surge of oxygen requirement. We have developed technologies also, which was developed maybe in the month of August or September. But we were searching for the companies who can take it and then they can go with a mass production. We have been discussing with a number of companies from November onwards. Now, recently, around 10-12 days back, we transferred technology to one of the companies. Today, we have transferred technology to the second company. And after discussion with him, we could find that second week of May onward, that there will be a number of oxygen enrichment units in India. So, oxygen supply that time, which is going to be the peak time, will be available through our technology. So we try to get a innovative solution, and we try to play maybe whatever the resources in the hospitals have. We can really develop a technology as per this. What was happening earlier, the oxygen cost was not
but
very
this
high.
technology that we're talking about, since you spoke specifically about technology, Dr. Hirani, most of the people that I'm speaking to right now, they are saying that we have more than adequate production of oxygen. The technology for transporting it is missing. Why is that? Why don't we have the wherewithal to transport the oxygen that we have?
Transportation technology was not talking. I was talking about the developing or generating the oxygen there itself. We don't really require any transportation. So we don't really require the filling cylinders at all, which is to some extent also risky. Sometimes it can catch a fire so easier way. So we are talking about something like a completely making a plant in one hospital, and then the hospital becomes a self-sufficient. After that, they don't have to buy oxygen at all. The oxygen will be generated from a normal layer. It will be enriched. It can be varying from maybe up to 96%. Oxygen enrichment can happen. So those are the technologies. Or sometimes we require to dilute, so we can go ahead
Syed Zafar
with
Islam.
30 to 90%.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Syed Zafar Islam, I think you're back now. We played out what the director of Shanti Mukund Hospital said today. I think it broke everyone's heart. He literally had to cry saying, we're going to run out of oxygen. We have people who are on ventilator. We need more supplies. What, according to you, has led us to this pass?
Well, Padmaja, the Honorable Prime Minister had convened a meeting, as you rightly pointed out, that the supply side, something which needed to be addressed, that has been addressed. In terms of production, people were talking about, there are people who are making this called the false allegation that the production has been reduced, or we are producing less than what is the consumption, what requires to be consumed, or what is the demand. So we are definitely producing much more than the total outstanding demand is currently, which is like 54% of the total demand. Total production is the demand currently. Secondly, what is more important, Padmaja, that is the logistic which is actually creating problems, something which has also been addressed. It is not that the production which was an issue, but the Honourable Prime Minister.
Whatever might be the problem, with due respect, the logistics might be the issue, but till the logistics are addressed, at the end of the day, if I am sitting in an ICU, all that is my concern is, where is my oxygen? Why isn't oxygen reaching the people who need it?
Absolutely right. And that is why the center had to intervene, and something which needed to be done has been done. And I'm sure that supply chain has been restored and everything has been addressed, and all these hospitals we needed oxygen are now getting oxygen, and whatever bottleneck was there, which has also been removed.
I'm sorry, sir, but we really need to do a harsh reality check on this. We have got people who are running hospitals right now, who are managing hospitals right now on our panel. Dr. Ashok Seth, Dr. D.S. Rana, both here with me. Let's do a fact check on your claim. Dr. D.S. Rana, you are the chairman of Sir Gangaram Hospital. Am I correct? Because the last message we've got is that as of 8 p.m. today, you only had 5 hours of oxygen remaining. If the bottlenecks have been cleared, why don't you have oxygen? What is the problem, Dr. Rana?
No, there is a regular supply of our last 2 days, but the supply only for few hours, and there is no doubt that we have now maximum. We can run the hospital up to 2 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. But what happened really when we require some reservoir to maintain the flow to run ventilators. So it will be very difficult to run ventilator after 1 o'clock, So we have been promised by the Delhi government actually that at least by 2 o'clock, before 2 o'clock, they will deliver us at least 2,000 cubic meter. Let us hope they deliver it, and that is what they are doing actually now after this order, and they're trying to take over crisis. I hope that there is no crisis. That's the truth actually, that there is not a.
So, Dr. Rana, you were saying earlier the message that we had is that the oxygen you have is only till 1 a.m. You're saying that problem has been resolved, that you have now reservoirs and adequate backup until tomorrow?
The hope has been given that by 1 a.m. today tonight, approximately 2,000 of cubic meter of oxygen will be delivered to us. That will take care till the next 3-4 hours. By that time, it is hoped that Inox will deliver more oxygen. So it is, a few hour basis actually. So I hope now that what some person was ensuring that supply chain will be now being restored. So once the supply chain be restored, probably at least for 1 day, the hospital should be ensured proper oxygen supply. So I think all problem will be addressed.
Okay, I think Syed Zafar Islam wants to respond and address your concerns. Yes, go on.
All I'm trying to convey, Padmaja, that situation was something which needed to be attended by the central government, which has attended. The Honorable Prime Minister himself intervened, and the visibility which the hospital needed in terms of the delivery is something which they have, as the doctor has very clearly stated, that they have the visibility by 1 a.m. They'll be the adequate supply will be given to them. Likewise, all the other hospitals have, and it is being organized. It is being monitored by the central government himself, and the order in that respect has also been issued by Ministry of Home Affairs to ensure that nobody, even if they want to, cannot stop the supply of the oxygen.
Well, we certainly hope that all the states are paying heed to this, because it's a BJP-ruled state ultimately that is under a cloud, Haryana in particular, accused of holding up the supply of oxygen across the border. But we will put all those questions to Anil Vij more specifically. Dr. Ashok Seth, just a second. We will ask all of those questions also, but I specifically want to stay away from politics on this. I genuinely need solutions here. Dr. Ashok Seth, we have an empowered group which is now looking at which state gets how much oxygen. As someone who is at the helm of affairs at Fortis Escorts Heart Institute, what is your 3-point suggestion to this empowered group for our national action plan?
So that's a very specific question, and I'm going to answer that. But I just want to put certain things into perspective, if you give me a minute, and that relates to the fact that, yes, the oxygen consumption has gone enormously high, 4 times to 5 times, because it's both non-COVID patients, which are really flooding in, also for treatment at the same time. They're having surgeries, they're having other, and they're sick. And then, of course, we've got now, the COVID patients who are admitted are actually the sickest COVID patients. They're no more mild disease and so on. And we know that oxygen for COVID patients is life-saving, and they require high levels of oxygen, sometimes as much as 20 to 50 liters per minute. Now, having said that, the 2 aspects which are clear are there's enough oxygen. It could be diverted. Transportation is more difficult, primarily because it takes a few days to cryogenic tankers. But the real disappointing aspects was 2 aspects, which I felt as a doctor, because you're treating those patients, you're looking at, and by the way, we're still living a few hours for oxygen, that you start getting worried about the patient. However much you got to put your straight face on and create confidence amongst patient and public, you're still really getting really worried from inside, saying, what do I do if it actually goes, if you have no oxygen? The 2 aspects of disappointment was lack of reaction time and coordination and petty politics within the state. Perhaps that did the most damage of keeping us on the brink. And I'm very happy that centralized coordination. So the first aspect is centralized coordination systems. Oxygen is not a state subject. It is a public domain as far as this country is concerned. And therefore, equitable distribution of oxygen, especially because Delhi, and there are many other states which don't have an oxygen making facility in the state. And we have to get oxygen from distances. So that's the first aspect. Secondly, get us oxygen faster. So these tankers, even if we get them for Orissa or somewhere else to Delhi, are going to take a few days. A few days is a long time. So I think we need to get oxygen here faster. And finally, a very important point, just like you asked, what does everybody do? So we've talked about the government agency, the centralized agency, I'm sure it's going to be sorted out over the next 48 hours. I'm very confident. But what do we do? It's also responsibility while there's production, while there's diversion of oxygen to the hospitals, and while there's transportation and centralized coordination, there's also our own responsibility to see how can we decrease an optimal utilization of oxygen. I don't want public to panic just because they see a 94% saturations. And we are at fault for having emphasized that number all over the last year, saying the moment you see 94, just start rushing into the hospital, contact a doctor. And now we are saying, listen, even as doctors, 90 to 94 is fine. As long as you're not overly breathless, just turn yourself upside down in a prone position and you'll find your oxygen go from 90 to 95. Keep in touch with the doctor. And when we get them to the hospital also, I want them to be educated to say, don't want the numbers to be 98, 99. We don't. We can give you just small, 1/4 that oxygen and still have your saturations at 93, 94, which is fine for your body to function, which is fine for your systems and all your organs to get oxygen. And finally, the high flow nasal, we've been used to these high flows because everybody told that's what works in COVID. In last year, as news came from abroad, they utilize 50 to 80 liters of oxygen a minute, and there's a lot of oxygen wasted. And we gradually find that even non-invasive ventilation with masks, with lesser oxygen, can get saturations of 90, which is good enough for the patient. So we're actually moving in that direction. We've created ourselves in the last 2 days, 10 commandments of optimal utilization of oxygen, believing that we can decrease our utilization by 10 to 15% and maybe 20% and maybe extend the time duration and not get to that vital point where we say oh, we've run out of oxygen, what do we do now? So I think we have a responsibility at multiple ends, and I've just given you three important points. Please do.
I totally agree, Dr. Seth, but it's very difficult to reason with someone. And you know, while I've heard all senior doctors like yourself talk about optimal use of oxygen, you would agree that this has become a very controversial topic, especially when a patient in crisis and a panicked relative is told, don't worry, he doesn't need a COVID ICU, he doesn't need to be hospitalized or a ventilator at this point. They turn around and ask you, you are the most heartless person rationing out oxygen at this point. So to anyone
nobody's
watching
rationing
right
oxygen.
Now,
it's like the drugs.
Advise?
It's like the infrastructure.
I totally understand,
give it to the right person.
That's
give it to the right person who needs it. So optimization
so who is that right person? Which is the point? Which is the point at which you become the right person to go to hospital and avail of that medical oxygen? That's tipping point, Dr. Singh.
That tipping point is breathlessness, respiratory rate going high, and the oxygen saturations consistently dropping to 90% or less with breathlessness and respiration rate high. Always, by the way, this is not unsupervised, and I'm again saying supervised care is very important, whether it's at home or in the hospital. What are we doing? Now there's this whole load of video conferencing, there's a whole load of care at home, and that's what we need to do most. Talk to the patient, be in touch with him, decide the right point. It's up to the doctor. The patient will always be panicking. Our message is, no, you will be getting the oxygen when you need it. Let the doctor decide and stay in touch. Always be assured of the fact that there's somebody supervising you. And we got to, by the way, you asked for a solution. We need better home monitoring systems. People, 90% of the people are going to get better. 10% of the people are going to need to be hospitalized. Unfortunately, 30 to 40% of the people do panic.
I think you have given some very specific suggestions. Given that the government is now going to present a national action plan, Sayyid for Islam, I certainly hope that you're going to take all of these forward to the authorities. Dr. Hirani, you also want to come in, but I want to quickly get in Dr. Shubhashish Guha Roy as well. Everyone wants to chip in, Dr. Roy, saying we will also contribute our bit to, do away with this oxygen crisis. Who are those people who can chip in, and how can they help? Dr. Roy.
Thank you for having me on your show. First of all, I'd like to just do a small correction. I'm not a doctor. I'm a manufacturer of oxygen gas in Bangalore. And the area which I'm confined and my distribution is Bangalore, Bangalore and Mysore. And it's okay, it's okay. See, what has taken us by surprise as an oxygen manufacturer is the increase in the requirement of oxygen by number of folds. By number of folds, it has gone up by 10 to 15 times. So this is something which has taken us all by surprise. It has all taken us by surprise. You know, we have been facing a huge challenge distributing to all these hospitals. We have been catering to around 175 to 200 hospitals, which I have already said in other channels also. Now, certainly, how do we meet this demand? We have been supplying before this COVID, before this second wave, on an average a daily around 15 to 20 tons in Bangalore and Mysore. Whereas now it has shot up to 75 to 80 tons. Now, where do we bring this basic raw material product, which is liquid medical oxygen? We cannot increase the production overnight. Maximum, you know, we are running the plant, this is a process plant, we always run on 100% mode. We can increase by 10%. So where does this product, how it is going to come? We are producing around 40 to 50 tons per day. The demand has gone up to 80 tons. So what we did first thing is to meet this hospital requirement. We made industrial supplies zero. We have stopped supplies to industries. We said, no, let us save lives, that which is more important now. No problem, industry entrepreneurs have been coming to us, fighting with us. How do we run our show? How do we manage our show? We said, okay, fine, we'll help you, but later on. First we have to help, save lives, we have to give it to hospital. But only challenge is what you're facing today, what we find very difficult to handle is how to cater to the needs of smaller hospitals. They don't have large storage facilities unlike these bigger hospitals have. They have small tanks, you know, which will only, in normal days, it goes for 2 days, 3 days storage capacity they have. But during COVID times, it is getting over within 4 hours, 5 hours. We fill it in the morning, they want again refill in the afternoon. Afternoon, we refill it, they want again night. See, in a city like Bangalore, it is very difficult to reach them again within 4 hours, 5 hours. But somehow we have the distribution system, we are gearing up, we have geared up, we are ensuring we are reaching them, so that we don't, no life is lost for want of oxygen. This is first thing which we want like to do.
Okay.
Nobody should, lose life for want of oxygen. So now, but one thing I must say, it will not be fair if I don't mention, the state government has been very proactive. The industry ministry, the drug department, and especially Mr. Tejasvi Surya, he's a Bangalore MP. They are, interacting with us on an hourly basis. Even a small hospital can contact them, and they call us back, kindly help them. And we are not seeing who has been supplying to them so far, irrespective of who has been their supplier. We are saying, we can come to us, we will fill. We have been, even for the home use.
Okay, so we definitely recognize where people are making these individual efforts, but at the end of the day, it has to be an institutionalized response. It cannot be at the level of an individual politician or, an effective MP, an effective MLA. Plenty of leaders across the political divide are doing yeoman service, but it has to be an institutionalized response. So what are the 4 things, Syed Zafar Islam, after listening to all of the problems and issues that are cropping up and the shortages that persist, you are going to tell people on our panel and the people watching you right now?
Well, Padmaja, first of all, I want to assure you through your channel to all the people who are watching, then that as the doctor has very clearly said, that the supply is being restored, adequate supply will be given, that visibility they have, and we will ensure that whatever visibility they have, that will be delivered to their satisfaction. That is something which I want to assure, because that is something which is being done at the central government level, and we will ensure that it does happen so that everybody feels comfortable, doctor feels comfortable, so the patient, so the management of the hospital management as well. Secondly, I also want to request you to that all of us should propagate that what the doctor was saying, that even at the saturation level of 94, people should not panic, because they have also got endless number of messages, including some of your colleagues, that they are looking for something or the other because the saturation level has come off to 92, 93 or 91. I think there should be some message from the doctor community to the people at large, that at 92, 93 or 94, one should not get overly worried, because you are still comfortable and safe, because there are many people who have 94 and they are very worried. So I think purely because they feel that the oxygen has been disrupted and that is not available. One thing which is very, very important, that all the producer, what he was telling to everyone, that we have prioritized, and that is the Honorable Prime Minister has also very clearly said that industrial use we will hold that industrial use, and in fact we will divert everything for the patients and for the hospital's consumption. Something is being done, and we will.
All right, we will do our bit. I'm sure the doctors are doing their bit to create that awareness so that people are not paranoid or panicky. Okay, Dr. Seth, yes.
You had said that this is, why are you rationing, or this is rationing of oxygen? Actually, this is not rationing. It's prevention of wastage, and in fact, more people will be able to get oxygen. But it's just that the right amount and the right people, and that's why it's not called rationing. It's optimization and making sure more people get it, the ones who need it and the ones who it's appropriate. Wastage is a very important aspect now, and we've got to prevent wastage of oxygen.
I totally agree. Dr. Rana.
Yeah, I must emphasize again that it is the increased demand and decreased supply which is creating problem. The optimization, as Dr. said, he's telling me we are crying since morning, that is a very important, but that is not a major cause of, that will not address the issue. Ultimately, issue will be addressed by increased production by any means whatsoever they can do, and by maintaining supply chain. These are two things. And at the same time, reducing the number of patients those who are getting, this disease. Till you are able to reduce the number of patients, these methods like optimization, they are not going to take place. Optimization in major hospitals, they are already taking this place. They know about it. It is only in small hospitals or small places,
Yes.
maybe that there is some wastage. This will reduce the panic attack, but it will not address the problem. And let me assure you that that sort of wastage that will not address more than 5 to 10%.
Okay, so the awareness and addressing of the panic, all of that should also be done, but at the end of the day, like the doctors have said, the supply chain issues need to be addressed, and this kind of politics needs to be done away with altogether. We are hoping that after the intervention of the center, we will come up with a cohesive plan tomorrow. Thank you very much, all doctors, as well as Subhashish Guha Roy and Syed Zafar Islam, for having joined me. I think people really appreciate the information that you have given out.